Basketball at West Virginia University is getting rave reviews. A cast of characters, each a talented athlete with a contribution to make, takes to the hardwood under the direction of one of the game's winningest coaches. Together they star as a team, and as a team, they're reaching new heights of success. Wins have come by the hundreds for this troop, and the ranks of its fans have grown to incredible proportions. So take a few minutes and we'll go backstage. You'll hear about some of this team's finest performances, about its coach, one of the most successful in all of college basketball, and about a program whose stars learn their roles on the court. This is Mountaineer basketball, the best show in town. The 1983 production opened with enthusiastic crowds cheering their heroes on to 8 straight victories. Among the conquered forces were intrastate rival Marshall and an Ohio State squad that was headed for the NCAA playoffs. Always a heated battle, the Marshall game showcased the awesome abilities of Greg Jones, a senior from Youngstown, Ohio, whose dynamic energy served as a catalyst for WVU's explosive offense, tenacious ball-hawking defense. When Jones signed with the Mountaineers in 1979, head coach Gail Catlett called him one of the top point guard prospects in the country. That prospectus was accurate as Jones matured like a blue chip stock, his average soaring every season.
Very fortunate that Greg was in the program here with us for 4 years. I think the records that he set, I think the records the team had during that period speak for themselves. But he was a wonderful young man to coach, great competitor on the floor, and always did what the coach asked him to do, and I'm just sorry he left.
Against the Thundering Herd, Jones piled up 31 points and gave notice of the play that would help him average more than 22 points, 4 assists, and 3 steals a game.
We came out and played hard and fought hard every game. We hustled. You know, we played as hard as we could every game. That's the thing I like since I've been here, and my 4 years since I was here, from playing these guys. They played hard every single night. The coaches, they, you know, tell us the things we do wrong. Sometimes we didn't like it, but we just, you know, bit our lip and hung in there and played tough.
Jonesy and his teammates flew through the early season like a one-act play, and the Mountaineers turned back their first 6 opponents by an average score of 81-67. Victories did not always come easy, though, and overtime games were to become as common for this WVU team as encores on Broadway. The Ohio State Buckeyes provided the first test, using the home court advantage of St. John Arena to force the issue into 1, then a second overtime. Watch free throw shooting from Jones, and the emergence of junior center Tim Carney as a strong rebounder paved the way for a 69-67 West Virginia win. A week later in the Mountaineer Classic at the Charleston Civic Center, Virginia Commonwealth put forth a valiant effort that led to another overtime before WVU finally emerged with a 66-65 triumph. Rebounding was an asset to this team, and the performances of Carney, skywalking sophomore Lester Rowe, and strong senior Russell Todd allowed the Mountaineers to clear the boards more than 40 times a game, almost 7 more rebounds than their opponents.
Everyone says, well, how come your team does such a great job rebounding? I think their competitive spirit, but also their instinct to get to the boards, to anticipate where the shots are coming off.
The glitter of that racehorse faded slightly with the consecutive road losses to Stetson and eventual national champion North Carolina State. Shooting problems from the field and the foul line were a major factor in those setbacks, West Virginia's first back-to-back defeats in 2 seasons. The losses hurt, and the critics pondered this team's future. But Catlett and his youthful band of basketball combatants regrouped to start the new year and their first season of action in the Atlantic 10 Conference. Formerly known as the Eastern Eight, the conference had added Temple and St. Joseph's, two of the East's strongest representatives, and welcomed back Penn State after a 3-year absence. Suddenly, the Atlantic 10 became one of the college game's most competitive conferences, and Catlett and assistant coaches Gary McPherson, Bob Smith, Lou Pelliccioni, and Butch Haswell had their work cut out for them.
I think the only thing we really lacked last year was probably a television contract to get some exposure so people around the country could see how competitive our conference really was.
After pulling out a 2-point win over Temple in the conference season opener, the Mountaineers ran into a buzzsaw on Mount Nittany and dropped a 79-74 decision to Penn State. Jones and Carney again turned in stellar performances, though, as the little guy poured in 33 points, and the big pivot man from Falls Church, Virginia, picked off 11 rebounds. Less than a week later, in an Atlantic 10 game against Duquesne, West Virginia shooting stars displayed the kind of field goal accuracy that produced WVU's third straight 20-win campaign. The Mountaineers hit 58% of their attempts on the way to a 91-79 run over the Dukes. Newcomers and understudies were also making contributions to the success of the season, as 10 West Virginia players saw time in at least 23 of the 31 contests played. Everyone got into the act, from the consistent workhorse performances of Jones and Todd to the specialist parts played by people like Mike King, Tony Washam, Quentin Freeman, and newcomers Renardo Brown and Dale Blaney. Game programs became a necessity as Mountaineer fans enjoyed the fun of keeping up with the squad changes and the strategic alignments made by the Cat and his staff.
I'll tell you right now, they're going to move it. Then you got to block off, and you got to get up on the board. But the secret's going to be the movement of the guards. When the ball's over here, they're going to try to split you up. When the ball's here, you got to have movement of the guards and helping inside also, so the ball cannot go into Brown. Todd, if you and Ray have anybody on the box, you got to get in front of them down there. Do a good job. Rebound it. Let's run the fast break. Come down and get the easy one.
And those coaching moves almost always paid off. Another conference win, this time over Rutgers, preceded a trip to the nation's capital for a date with Atlantic 10 foe George Washington. Overtime was needed again, and for the third straight time, the Mountaineers prevailed in the extra period. A non-league encounter with regional rival Virginia Tech would provide a little break from the rigors of conference competition. Or would it? The score was tied at 68 after 40 minutes. One overtime could not settle things, and a second didn't do it either. It took a third thrilling overtime for West Virginia to win its 13th game of the season, 90-86. Only one other game in West Virginia basketball history had gone 3 overtimes. That was back in 1972 against those same Virginia Tech Hokies. With the marathon out of the way, WVU got the Atlantic 10 show back on the road with 4 straight wins, including 2 100-point contests against Massachusetts and Penn State. West Virginia's front line was impressive in this stretch as Brown, Carney, Rowe, and Todd all played great basketball. A trip to St. Bonaventure called for more overtime, a double dose to be exact. Despite 20 points from Russell Todd and 15 from Jones, the Mountaineers suffered a 2-point setback at the hands of the Bonnies. They bounced back quickly, pounding out a 99-76 triumph over George Washington, setting the stage for one of the brightest moments in West Virginia's long and rich basketball heritage. The date was February 27th, 1983. College Town in the Appalachian foothills became the center of the college roundball universe. Television screens across America painted a blue and gold frenzy. More than 15,000 fans flooded the Coliseum, spilling into the aisles, the exits, and any open space they could find. The atmosphere was marked with the shock of human electricity usually reserved for a Hollywood premiere, and with good reason. The #1 team in the game, the Runnin' Rebels of Nevada, Las Vegas, had come to Morgantown to shoot some hoops. When the smoke had cleared after CBS had televised the game across the country, WVU's basketball cannon had another notch in its barrel. The final score was 87-78, but it will be known in the Mountain State forever as simply the time we beat Vegas. Greg Jones was typically awesome, hitting 5 3-point buckets on the way to a game-high 32 points. Carney made possibly his most significant contribution of the year, as he added 15 points and 10 rebounds. Russell Todd chipped in 14 points, and the team presented Gale Catlett with his 100th victory as West Virginia's head coach.
I remember that day specifically because we had a great crowd. We had a national television audience again, of course, and everything went right for us, and it was just a day that I will long remember because of all of the events surrounding that great game.
The season had been amazing. 20 wins, a victory over the #1 team in the country, games on television every week, postseason action just about assured. There was only one thing left to reach for, a laurel that had eluded Catlett and his WVU teams for 4 years, the championship of the league tournament. The Mountaineers took care of Penn State with a 10-point triumph in the opening round of the playoffs. That set up a trip to the Spectrum in Philadelphia and a semifinal clash with a St. Bonaventure squad that had defeated West Virginia in both regular season meetings. The Bonnies were also responsible for breaking WVU's home winning streak, which had run to 39 games over 3 seasons. Balanced scoring was the name of this game as 5 West Virginia players hit double figures. Lester Rowe from Buffalo led the way with 16 points, and Carney turned in another solid performance on the boards with 12 rebounds. The victory launched the Mountaineers into the league championship game, a stage they had occupied twice in the past. But the storyline unfolded differently on the Spectrum hardwood. Russell Todd, the latest in a succession of strong WVU forwards, hit 7 of 13 shots from the field and added 9 from the foul line to lead the way with 23 points. Todd also topped the rebound column with 9 as he turned in one of the most important clutch performances of his career. West Virginia raced to a 50-39 halftime lead and held on to win 86-78, taking its first league tournament championship since the 1967 Southern Conference playoffs. But most significant in the win was the automatic berth in the NCAA playoffs it provided. The Mountaineers were headed for postseason action for the 3rd year in a row. Their opponent in the opening round of the NCAA tournament would be James Madison University. Run and gun transition basketball has been a trademark of Gale Catlett coach teams, and this season was no different. But against the Dukes, tempo was the theme. James Madison's 51% shooting from the field spelled the end of a highly successful Mountaineer season. Final score was 57-50, the lowest point output of the year for West Virginia.
I was very pleased that we achieved most of the goals that we set out to achieve before the year started. So they were fun to coach. They were a great group of guys, represented the university and the state properly, and I hope the rest of our teams, while we're the coaching staff here, can always do that.
As the curtain dropped on the 1983 campaign, WVU followers everywhere were singing the praises of their head coach. After 5 years in the director's chair, Gale Catlett has molded the Mountaineer program into one of the finest in the country. The WVU colors have been added to the banners representing a regular season conference championship, the league's tournament title, the Final Four of the NIT, and the NCAA playoffs twice. And the future looks bright as the WVU basketball show rolls on toward another season. Returning talent includes Carney, who's constantly improving his inside play, and Rowe, one of the most talented small forwards in the game today. A group of youngsters waits in the wings, including Dale Blaney, a part-time starter last season. Renardo Brown, a swing player who can contribute just about anywhere. Michael King, another strong rebounder who also can score. Adam Powell will help the front line with his size and strength. Guards Vernon Odom and J.J. Crawl await a chance to improve on Greg Jones' backcourt prowess. And added to this group is another strong recruiting class.
Well, we have 9 players returning from last year's squad, and we have 4 newcomers coming in from the standpoint of the freshmen. And at this point, I know our schedule is going to be one of the most difficult we've ever had, but at the same time, I know the players will be very competitive.
The lights are dim, the stage is empty, and the crowd has gone away for now. But it all starts again soon. The excitement, the noise, the plays, the praise, the action, the strategy, the winning. All of these ingredients and more come together at the Coliseum and around the East every time the Mountaineers play. The fans keep coming back, and the reason is simple. West Virginia basketball is the best show in town.